Hi Amy, this is the feedback for the reading part of the mock exam that you sat recently, and you scored the full 4 marks for question 1, so that's a good start. Moving on to question 2, where you're asked to comment on the writer's use of language to describe the effects of the storm. You started off well when you said the writers use lots of descriptive writing, at least I assume that's what you meant, when talking about the storm, and you've given the example of wind lashing the trees and rain on the rooftop and thunder. And your analysis is that this makes you as the reader be able to imagine how bad the storm is. And you said he also put this into short, simple sentences. Now, to gain higher marks, you need to go more in depth into your analysis and zoom in on particular words. So, for example, you could have picked up on lashing, which is a verb, and it gives the impression that the wind is whipping the trees around and beating them against the ground, trying to beat the ground into submission. And then your second paragraph, you said it also makes you feel how scared the boy is when saying he lay listening to the storm and thinking about this blackbird and about his mother, waiting for the pounding in his chest to die down. So using the word pounding makes you feel like it has really scared him, and he just wants it to be over so he's no longer tangled in the images from his bad dream. I'm not sure how much that's actually commenting on the effects of the storm, or the words that have been used to describe the effects of the storm. I think you could have commented on the fact that he says they're spilling in furious waves against the rocks, which could indicate how angry the storm is and how aggressive it is. And again, it's throwing itself against the ground. So furious is an adjective, or it could have been personification. So if we look at the mark scheme, starting off at level 1, offers simple comment on the effect of language. I think it is just simple comment. You do need to give that little bit more detail about how it's making you, the reader, feel, rather than just saying it enables you to imagine how bad the storm is. What's it telling you about the storm? That it's angry and it's fierce and so on. Select simple references or textual details. Well, your quotes are appropriate up there, and make simple use of subject terminology, not always appropriately. Again, you've done some simple one where you've said lots of descriptive writing, but that's really and short simple sentences, so they are quite basic points. So it's 2 out of the possible 8 marks for this question, but we will try and work on your understanding of the technical terms. Okay, moving on to question 3, where you're asked to analyse how the text has been structured to interest you as a reader. You've started off well by saying at the beginning of the text the writer was focused on Alex and his bad dream about his mother being taken by an enormous black bird. And then you said as the text goes on you realise the story is about his mother and how she's ill and how things have changed since she's become ill. This bit here isn't really relevant. The way it's structured is good, has small paragraphs with lots of short sentences when the children are talking about when the mother may get better, because that's more the language. You said it makes you want to read on and grabs your attention as you want to know everything will work out for them in the end. You could have said that in the beginning, the first line, we learn all about who, where and when, because we find out that it's about Alex, a boy. He's in bed because he's waking up at dawn. And the fact that the text is divided into 2 parts. The first half is focusing just on Alex, and then the second part shows how he interacts with the rest of the family. And the focus changes. There's a sentence, there'd been a lot of days like that since his mother got sick, which is really important partway through the text, because that is the first time that we've been made aware that his mum is ill, and it then makes sense of the nightmare and the fact that she's carried away by the blackbird. It could be showing us that his mum's going to die, or at least that Alex is worried that his mum's going to die, and it all starts to make sense to us. You could talk about the way it changes focus. So it starts off with Alex and then it goes on to the dream, or the nightmare, and then it's back to Alex again and his family, and then at the end it's all about his mum and the comparison between when she was well and when she's not. So I don't think you focused enough on the structure of how it flows. So again, it's going to be level 2. Offer simple comment on the effect of structure. When you've done that, select simple references or examples. You have put an odd quote in there. And simple use of subject terminology, not always appropriate. Well, again, you have, because you said at the beginning and the writer was focused and as the text goes on. But you needed to focus more on the actual structure that the writer has chosen to use, as I've already outlined. Moving on to question 4, where you've been asked to what extent do you agree with the statement that the part of the story set during breakfast time shows that Alex is struggling to cope with his mother's illness. You've started off by saying Alex comes across as being scared of what's happening to his mother and wants it all to be over. And then you've gone on to when at the breakfast table and his sister tries to ask when their mother's going to get better. You've given the quote up when Alex says, "Shut up, Nicole." And your analysis is it's something he doesn't even want to talk about, and saying you two are kids. You don't know what you're talking about. So there we've got some comment of the effect on the reader. You've not really shown there the right understanding of the writer's methods. You've used a quote and you have made some response to the focus of the statement in that paragraph. Moving on to the next one, the writer says Alex was angry with his father and his sisters and life in general, even his mother for getting sick. So that's your quote, and your evaluative comment is which shows his emotions coming out because of what has happened to his mother. And I suppose you've said the writer says Alex was angry, so in that way you've shown some understanding, or you've shown understanding of the writer's methods. And then down here we've got when you get to line 35, Alex had realised during those months how enormous the mother's presence had been and how painful the absence was now. Makes you think that Alex took for granted what his mother had done for him and his sisters. And the writer has used descriptive words when describing his mother and how she is now, from lines 41 to 44, saying she was too thin and her sunken eyes were circled with shadows and she was a more silent ghost. Makes you able to picture this very poorly lady. Unfortunately, all of this here from Alex had realised during those months isn't answering the question, because it's not showing that Alex is struggling to cope with his mother's illness. And even in your summing up, you said in your analysis, you said it makes you think that he's taken for granted what his mother does, and then makes us be able to picture the very poorly lady that everyone's missing. So that's not answering the question, unfortunately. Though you have looked at some of the writer's methods where you've said she's used descriptive writing. Really, it's only this bit that's actually relevant to the question. I think we can give 6 out of the 20 marks for that question, because you have done some evaluative comments. Limited understanding of the writer's methods, because you've just said really the writer says. Some appropriate textual references and some response to the focus of the statement. So to gain higher marks, you need to make sure that what you're writing is just about how, showing whether Alex is coping or not with his mother's illness, and the methods. You need to look more into the methods that the writer uses as well. So you could have said that the writer uses dialogue between Alex and his sisters to show that he's not coping because he snaps at his sisters when they're asking him an innocent question. You could also use in this bit here, the writer uses the comparison between what his mum was like before and what she's like now, and how much Alex is missing how she used to be, which shows us that he's not coping. And you could also say that the metaphor of little more than a silent ghost suggests that she's become more of an invisible person in the family, and that she's fading away. So overall that gives you a score of 14 out of 40 for the reading part of the question.